Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Lily.
Delaney.
Kelsey.
And Josh. Delaney, welcome to this side of the panel.
Oh yes, very excited.
It's nice to have you here. Lily, Kelsey, welcome back. What are we going over today?
Today we'll be discussing The Great Fetishes by Blaise Cendrars.
Okay. It's a compromise from Lily and I. I wanted to do a Swiss palm. Lily wanted to do something else.
I prefer Swiss rolls. Guess who's monitoring, people?
Yep. There was a switch. We'll see how this goes.
Right.
What's the first question?
The first question is, do you believe that the fetishes in this work are describing idols or of decadent images?
I think that...
Yeah, I had brought this up because there are actually multiple definitions of the word fetish. Well, for the first part, you get the definition we've probably studied in anthropology, where you have a fetish as something worshipped as an idol by a certain group, or something regarded to have magical power when you possess it, or something
A
else.
fetish is anything that works someone up to the point that it gives them a feeling that is beyond their usual desire.
That's the second definition. We have fetish as, in the terms of psychology, a paraphilia, where you have something that is arousing someone to the point of, yeah.
At
You
the
have varying
same
degrees of.
At the same
Yeah.
time, when people have a worship for idols, these idols tend to work them up, but
yeah,
in
it's
a
devotion.
different. Their devotion it's not in
So
a.
it's spiritual devotion versus erotic devotion. This is cool.
So the
Because I was gonna say, for a piece that's called The Great Fetishes, this seems very vanilla, at least to me.
I don't know about that because I see it as. First, I saw it as being as completely separate, but then I saw it as being it's the cycle of life.
Well, vanilla sex is still sex. It can still have sex in it and be vanilla. But yes.
It's all just subjective. It's up to like your own personal experience and things of that sort. But I think on the topic of whether or not they're idols or decadent images, I think you can argue either one, because you can read the stanzas separately and they could be describing a statue of some sort, or you can find very sexual imagery within each stanza. So I would make an argument for both sides.
I don't know if I would be able to view it as 10 descriptions of the same thing, because there are male and there are female descriptions.
I wouldn't say the same thing. I would say that they were each separate, like statues or idols in each.
Well, there
different
are, it's funny because a lot of idols are depicted very erotically. The goddess Balbo, she has no face. Her whole body is a very large vagina, and that's where you have her eyes and her mouth.
Yeah.
And when she laughs, it opens and closes. There's the story where the goddess Demeter is depressed after Persephone has been abducted and she's in the underworld. And she wanders the world in a shroud as the hag, that's her hag form. And what brings her out and makes life able to come again, what makes their spring again, is that while she's wandering the road, she runs into Balbo, and Balbo tells her the dirtiest joke in the world, and to this day nobody knows what it was, but it made her laugh so hard, and the goddess laughed so hard that there was life again.
Okay.
I've never heard that before.
No, I haven't heard that part of it.
It's
sounds
not a
very
commonly
thin.
told story because they tend to tell the story of Persephone to very young children, and yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. You don't learn about the controversial elements of different gods until way
Later on.
Yeah, world literature in college.
Like the whole bit where it's implied that that Hades rapes Persephone on the way down.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know, the Greeks love their tragedy. So
Mhm.
it's pretty common. I mean, like look at even like Hercules, the ending. He His whole entire family's dead. It's nothing really too happy going on there, but the Disney movie tells you a different story.
Yep.
Yep.
I can go with it.
Next question.
The next question.
I'm sorry, Charles.
That's all right. Do you feel that the 10 stanzas are meant to be connected or viewed separately?
I say a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Because they are, it's about the cycle of life because it starts out with a baby, almost, the embryo arms, and it ends with a dead woman, which, but at the same time, they are, I see it very reflective to an R-rated version of Wallace Stevens's 13 Ways
Of looking at the Mockingbird.
Looking at the
Yeah.
Blackbird? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, the Blackbird. Yeah, the
that was I saw much of that kind of setup in this particular poem.
It's the same sort of idea. When you see a poem where it's in sections like this, like Adrian Rich with the 21 Love poems, when they're in cantos like this, each canto is usually tends to take a different view of the same topic, or they're expected to interrelate somehow.
I think the only difference between that Adrian Rich and Cendrars is the fact that in 21 Love Poems you can read them in any which order, almost in any which order that you want. With this, you can do the same, but it helps to read them in order because most of them, it starts from birth and it ends at death.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ones in the middle you can mix around, like the guy who, with the women's, he has an attraction to her sense. I'll read that off. I have it in here.
Do you remember which one it is?
Oh, okay.
Um,
I'm ugly and sniff girlish scents in my solitude so often. My head is swelling and my nose is ready to drop off, which is number 7.
I'm surprised at how different that is from what I have from this website.
Yeah, it was written in French,
Oh, okay.
so you
That
have
makes
two
sense.
different interpreters.
mhm.
Yeah, I
It's
saw
very
that
similar.
same thing.
It's
yeah.
I'm ugly, but sniffing the smell of girls of my solitude. My head is swelling up, and soon my nose is going to fall off.
That seems to relate to more the latter. The former, the one thing you could look at it either in perfumes or you can look at the smell of Lady herself,
Mm-hmm.
which I think in that translation the latter seems to strike more than the
Well, if it's decay, then that ties into death, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And the little death, le petit mort, is a slang for orgasm.
Mm.
So it's not at all so different from one another.
Mhm.
And doesn't orgasm begin life? Well,
Sometimes.
In a way.
Well, Mel.
Mm.
Sometimes
Mm.
is what I was saying. That was,
Oh, yes.
Mm.
that
There
was-
has to be. Well, if you're careful.
What is our next question?
Our next question is also our final question. Do you feel that this poem fits the traits of modernist literature?
Absolutely.
I feel it
Yes.
really, really does.
The reason being that poems that usually address issues relating to this, they were very artistic and creative. This poem, modernism stood for seeing it as what it really is. And this, there is description in here, but on many occasions it's direct.
Yeah, and you have a lot of punch to these images. It's just one after the other after the other.
And the fact that it's just the image itself, and they have in
Right.
these 10 separate stanzas. That is what makes it.
That's Pound, the image
Yeah.
in itself. He said poetry has 3 elements. It's phanopia, melopia, and logopia. Phanopia is phanos, the eye, the look of words, the image. Logopia, he calls it the dance of intellect among words, which is the word play, how the poet is using language creatively. And then melopia is the sound of words, how words can be melodic.
Does anybody have any final thoughts?
That's from Pound. That's the Imagist Manifesto.
My final thought would probably be just the fact that I don't see it as vanilla. I see it as relatively descriptive, and I think
I didn't mean do I need to clarify what I meant by vanilla?
Vanilla, just because Lily tends to go off on her not PG-13 rated tangents. Vanilla is a term used by like people who express more intense or interesting like sexual preferences. Like vanilla is the term used for like plain normal sexual scenarios. And,
just so funny how vanilla is a favorite ice cream of mine.
Yeah, and it's all
It's
subjective.
one of mine
I mean,
too.
I think it's
I actually wrote that one of my poems. It was like a bunch of ifs. Like it was an anaphora for if, and I was like, if you feel like you're contradicting yourself every time you eat vanilla ice cream.
But I mean, it is really in an end discussing like this sort of raw intimacy on any level. So you'd be what's vanilla for one person isn't for the other. Like its sexuality is in itself a scale, in my opinion.
If you're interested in reading this poem and some other works of Swiss poetry, the Modern and Contemporary Swiss Poetry Anthology is what you should check out. This is published by Adalki Archive, which also publishes the best European stories of the designated year. I got this off of Amazon for 90% off. So,
Do they do Best American Poetry too? Who runs that series?
I have to look that one up. If I find an answer, I'll leave it in the footnote.
Because I like that series.
But you can also find it online, but I would definitely check this out. There are, from all 4 sections of Switzerland, this collection covers the French, German, Italian, and Romansh, or Romansh.
Yeah.
Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.